Welcome to Whisper of the Past, where forgotten tales and half-buried legends come alive again through the voice of memory and time. If you love stories that linger long after the telling, subscribe, settle in, and let this story take you somewhere unexpected. The story begins in the dry heat of an Arizona summer, where the wind carries both dust and silence across a land that remembers everything. The year was 1889, and the sun was so bright it turned every color to bone. Out here, the ranchers spoke little, the horses spoke less, and the desert spoke through its echoes. And into that landscape rode a man named Silas Ward, a rancher with a quiet temper, a widow's patience, and a past that he never mentioned unless the whiskey got too deep. Silas had been tending his cattle for months without company, save for his old dog, a few stubborn mules, and the endless sound of the wind slapping the tin roof of his shack. He wasn't young anymore, and loneliness had settled into him like dust in a saddlebag, something always there, no matter how many times he tried to shake it out. Then one evening, as the horizon burned red with sunset, he saw her. She was standing near the old dry creek bed, tall, broad-shouldered, wrapped in a faded blanket that once carried the mark of the Chiricahua Apache. Her hair was black and heavy as a raven's wing, and her eyes caught the last of the light like pools of stormwater. Silas slowed his horse. She didn't move. The desert was so quiet, he could hear his own pulse. He'd heard rumors of the last Apache women who refused to go quietly onto the reservation, who still roamed the canyons and high plains. Some called them ghosts, others, angels of vengeance. Silas dismounted, tipping his hat politely. Even in the wild, old habits of respect died hard. Even ma'am, he said softly. The woman didn't answer right away. Her gaze traveled over him, measuring, weighing. When she finally spoke, her voice was deep, sure, and steady as the mountains behind her. I haven't had sex in 6 months, she said. Silas froze. The wind seemed to stop too. There are moments in a man's life that split the world into before and after, and for Silas Ward, that was one of them. He didn't know what to say. No woman had spoken to him that bluntly in his 52 years. He tried to find his footing in the silence. Ma'am, I beg your pardon. Her eyes narrowed, almost amused. I said what I said. 6 months, since I left the mountains. Then she added, you are a rancher. You have fire. You have food. I will stay tonight. And just like that, she walked toward his cabin. Silas followed, his heart thundering in a way it hadn't since his youth. The Apache woman, she never gave her name that first night, carried herself like someone who didn't ask for permission to exist. She was taller than most men, her muscles hard and her presence filling the small cabin like the storm before rain. Inside, she looked around at the plain walls, the rough wood table, the single bed. You live alone? She asked. I do, he said. Since my wife passed. She nodded, taking off her blanket and laying it over a chair. Beneath it, she wore a simple cotton dress torn at the shoulder and stained by travel. You work the land, she said. You listen to it. That's good. Then, softer, I used to listen too. Before the white men came with their fences. Silas didn't answer. He poured her water, watched her drink it in slow, measured gulps, as if every drop was precious. Outside, the coyotes started their nighttime chorus. The sky turned black and silver, stars burning over the desert like a million distant campfires. For a while, neither spoke. Then she looked at him and said, you are afraid of me. He didn't lie. A little, he admitted. She smiled, a slow, knowing smile that made him feel both small and seen. Good, she said. Fear keeps a man honest. That night, she slept by the door, her knife close to her hand. Silas lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering who she was, and why those first words of hers, strange and raw, still echoed in his mind. By dawn, she was outside, already feeding his horses and fixing the corral fence like she'd lived there all her life. When he stepped out, she said, your animals are thin. You water them too little. He bristled, then caught himself. It's been a dry season. She looked toward the mountains. There's a spring not far north. Hidden. My people used it. I will show you. For the next few days, she stayed. And in those days, the rhythm of the ranch changed. The silence softened. The nights didn't feel so empty. She never told him her real name, but one night by the fire she said, my sister used to call me Daso de Hay. It means, she who fights. Then I'll call you that, he said. She shook her head gently. You are not Apache. You cannot say it right. Just call me sister. And so he did. Sister, the giant Apache woman who appeared from nowhere, worked beside him like she'd been born to the land. She chopped wood, rode horses, and even sang sometimes in a language that seemed to bend the wind itself. But always, behind her calm, there was sadness, something old and unhealed. One evening, after a long day fixing the fence line, Silas asked quietly, "What brought you down from the mountains?" She looked into the fire and said, "My brother was killed. Soldiers. I went to find them. I found two. I killed them. The others, they chased me. I came here." Her eyes glowed in the firelight, fierce, unbroken. Silas nodded. There was nothing to say. He simply handed her a tin cup of coffee and sat beside her. They watched the flames dance. Days passed into weeks. The desert softened with the rare promise of rain. And something unspoken grew between them, something neither could name. When he brushed her hand one night by accident, she didn't pull away. And when she leaned close to him the next, he felt the whole world go still. She whispered, "You think I said those words, about 6 months, to tempt you. But no, I said them because I was testing you. The ones who wanted only that, they would have reached for me. You did not." Silas met her eyes. "What do you want from me, sister?" She smiled faintly. "Nothing, and everything." And that night, beneath the sound of rain finally falling on the tin roof, they became more than strangers. There was no passion born of lust, only of understanding, two people who had each lost too much, finding for a brief moment the warmth of being seen. Afterward, she whispered into the darkness, "In my people's way, when you share your body, you share your story too. Now you know mine." He brushed her hair from her face. "Then I'll keep it safe," he said. The next morning, she was gone. The door stood open, the blanket gone from the chair, the horses restless. On the table, she had left only a single eagle feather, and beside it, a line drawn in charcoal, the symbol of the Apache warrior women who would not bow to any man. Silas sat there for a long time. He thought of her words, her fire, her silence. He thought of how she'd said she hadn't been touched in 6 months, and how those words, at first strange, were never really about desire, but about honesty. About the raw truth of loneliness and survival. Years later, when travelers passed by his ranch, they spoke of an Apache woman seen in the mountains, tall as a man, proud as the sun, carrying an old rifle and a knife at her side. Some said she was a spirit. Some said she was still alive. Silas never said a word. But every morning, when he saddled his horse, he'd touch the feather she'd left behind, now tied to his bridle, and whisper quietly, "Ride safe, sister." And sometimes, when the wind swept down from the hills, he swore he could still hear her voice on it, steady and strong, saying, "Fear keeps a man honest." The desert remembered, and so did he. And that, my friends, is the story of the rancher and the giant Apache sister, a story not of romance or conquest, but of respect, resilience, and the strange tenderness that can grow between two people who have learned to live without expecting mercy from the world. If you've ever loved someone who came into your life like a storm, sudden, fierce, and unforgettable, maybe you understand what Silas felt that night beneath the rain. Thank you for listening to Whisper of the Past, where the old stories still breathe, and the echoes of yesterday never quite fade away. If this story moved you, leave a comment, share it, and subscribe for more tales that walk the line between history and heart. Until next time, let the past whisper to you, and listen close, because it always has something to say.